Well, good day. This is Rick with Spinal Network, and I have with me today Kenny and Claire Salvini from Washington, friends of mine for a number of years. What I'd first like to do, though, is to give a description of myself, a 66-year-old white male. For all intents and purposes, we'll say no hair, white background, gray shirt, and wearing glasses. I have a spinal cord injury and a wheelchair user.
Nice. You want us to do the same?
Sure.
Hey guys, it's Kenny Salvini. I am a 41-year-old white man with brown hair and a salt and pepper beard. I'm wearing a green and blue plaid shirt, and I'm sitting in my power wheelchair as well, C3-4 quadriplegic.
And I'm Claire Salvini. I'm a 30-year-old white female with medium length light brown hair. I'm wearing a green, tan, and orange color block sweater.
Okay. We can't see the orange, but we're going to take, oh, there you go. There you go.
It was hiding.
Let's start off. If you could give just a little background about yourself, and whoever wants to go first. Claire, why don't you go first?
Okay.
Perfect.
Let's see. So I already said my name's Claire. I grew up on Whidbey Island, actually. It's a very beautiful place to grow up. I ended up going to the University of Washington in Seattle. I got a degree in psychology and made my way south to Green River College, which is in Auburn, Washington. I was going to school for occupational therapy, and that is when I got a job as a caregiver for a handsome gentleman sitting to my right.
This guy.
And pretty much the rest is history. I currently am a mom of a 1-year-old, but I am doing pediatric occupational therapy 1 day a week, just to kind of get out of the house and keep my skills up. Yeah, I love just being outdoors. I love family, and yeah, I'd say that.
And driving the white whale.
Indeed. I don't know if she enjoys that.
Yeah, but we'll
the
talk
package
about,
deal.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
Deal.
Then.
Yeah. Yeah, no, a little bit of history for me. I grew up in the Lake Caps area. It's kind of smack dab between Seattle and Tacoma, and became paralyzed in 2004. I was a snow skiing accident. I was 8 months out of college, had wrestled in high school and college, and got back into snow skiing, and I had to jump going too fast, and I fell about 40 feet onto my head. So I broke my neck at C3-4. And so, yeah, I am a full tetraplegic, as they would call me. All I can do is shrug. I drive the wheelchair with my head. And it was a long road for me to kind of wrap my head around my spinal cord injury. But yeah, it's, here we are almost 18 years out, and life is light years from where I would have imagined it could have been when I first got hurt. And kind of up to date. I run the Washington chapter of United Spinal, called the Here and Now Project. We are a social support network for the paralysis community in the Pacific Northwest. And I met this gal back in 2014 and hired her briefly until she said she had a secret. If I wasn't her boss, she might want to date me. So I emailed her the next day and said, "You're fired." And the rest is history. So here we are 7 years later, got married in 2018, and welcomed a gorgeous little girl into the world just over a year ago. So that's kind of our backstory.
And that's what this particular podcast is going to be about. It's going to be about that journey where I always chuckled at the interabled couple, which a label, because I thought, wow, I didn't realize that I've been interabled for all these years, but I guess I am. And, but the focus of this particular podcast is going to be on couples and what their journey as they decide that they would like to start a family, and the different obstacles, the sometimes the heartaches, the challenges, and the wins, the success. And as you mentioned, you have a 1-year-old, so you have that success story to share.
Right.
My wife Karen and I, the same. We have Jenna, who's now 29, and which when Claire said how old she was, I thought, oh, my middle daughter's almost as old as she is, and we have 23-year-old twins, a boy-girl twins. So we were fortunate enough to experience that success as well. But this isn't about me; it's about you. So if the two of you wouldn't mind, if you could kind of share your journey, that whole journey from deciding you wanted to start a family until present day.
Yeah. Well, I know Claire, I mean, you can say you always wanted to be a mom since.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I did. I grew up playing with dolls, my dollhouse. I knew I was put on the planet to be a mom. So that started for me when I was,
Super young. Yeah. And, I had explored the in vitro process with the previous relationship, and it barely scratched the surface of that. But yeah, that was probably the biggest question I had after I was injured. I think when I first woke up in the hospital and they told me I was paralyzed, that was kind of one of my first questions. I'm like, can I still have kids? And they gave me a hem and a haw. Like, well, yeah, it's possible, but and that I really didn't think much more about it, because the rest of the kind of repercussions of a new injury kind of took precedent. But but then I think that was one of the factors when Claire and I were first kind of I should say courting, the fact that she had articulated that much, that she was put on this earth to be a mom. I was like, ooh, that definitely checks one of the big boxes in my heart. And so so we had to explore what that looked like. From a physical standpoint, I'm not one of those people that might have any sexual function, no ability to ejaculate. So there's no ability to retrieve any sperm that the old-fashioned way, as they might say. And like we'd explored all sorts of options. We talked to lots of friends, and and then I think it just started by making an appointment with the University of Washington, wasn't it?
Yeah. I was gonna say, thankfully, we knew a lot of people, well, maybe not a lot, but we had some friends who had already gone through the in vitro process, and we could kind of see what that was like when we were kind of initially dating. But then we got married and got signed up to meet with the urologist, because
I think it was the week after our wedding and right before we left on our honeymoon. Like,
when we first
Claire's
met.
all business. She's like, all right, you got a ring on it. We're making this happen. So so we met with the UW, like, male fertility clinic, and they kind of sketched out the different options. There's all sorts of options that have been out there, and I'm sure, Rick, the experience you had some 30 years ago looks a lot different than it does now. But I know there's like electroejaculation was an option in the beginning, and then a lot of vibratory stimulation, and we had Dr. Walsh, I can't remember. Thomas Walsh from University of Washington, who I think I had an appointment with him 10 years prior when I was first exploring the in vitro stuff. But I think I had an appointment that just got canceled when my last relationship ended. And circled back around to him, and we talked about the options, and he said, I don't want to do any of those kind of stimulation options. I want to go directly to sperm retrieval, actually extracting it, open up the testicles surgically.
Which is actually interesting to me because I, hear other people's stories of that first meeting, and this doctor just said, no, we're not going to even do that. I don't want to go there. And
right.
I hear other people are like, oh, you have to try that for like a whole year, or but I was almost thankful we didn't have to, because like of autonomic dysreflexia and all those things, I was like,
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I mean, we had gotten a Ferticare
from our friend, actually.
from one of our friends that had tried it, and I don't think it had worked for them either.
Yeah.
But Claire didn't want to try it because it's like the fear of the dysreflexia.
Yeah, they did it in a hospital setting, actually.
Right.
And so I didn't even know how to go about doing that. And I was like, if they did it there, I definitely don't want to just try it at home.
Yeah. We had some old school people that were, our friend Marty got a couple of daughters that are in their 20s. He's like, oh, just take it home, make it happen, and it's gonna, and yeah, we just I was a little bit more open to it, but Claire was just like hard no.
Well, just the cost. I mean, and if you mess up doing it at home, then you've got to go through that again. And when I went, they did the electrostim ejaculation, and my BP shot up. And I'm a TA para. I can't, anybody, a higher level injury, man, the AD would it would be dangerous.
Yeah. And then we kind of unpacked it a little bit more with Dr. Walsh after we had the baby, and I reached back out to do the article for New Mobility magazine, and he stays way away from that because there's lots of the BP risk, and also that you can have like burning, like you can cause actual physical structural damage if it's not done properly. And
but I think everyone's different,
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because when Kenny went in to do that first procedure, what was it called?
Oh gosh.
See, I told you we weren't going to remember the names. So there's two different ones. There's and Kenny has a really great analogy. The first one, like the couch cushion analogy.
Right. So there is it's Tessie and micro Tessie, I think, are the terminologies. But yeah, the first one is literally they're gonna hook a syringe in to the testicle and go, a needle. I say syringe. Okay, I guess you need a needle to get access. That'd be a really violent process. But
and they're gonna go farming. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they just go in with a needle and they just kind of poke around blindly. And I started calling that it's like looking for changing the couch cushion by sticking the hose of the vacuum cleaner blindly in between the cushions. And then that actually, we did not have very much success. I think we did the first surgery, and I think it yielded 6,000 sperm.
When usually there's 1 million.
At least, you're talking in the scale of millions. And
and I remember getting the phone call from Dr. Walsh. We were at your parents' house. And and at that point, I think we were both pretty devastated already. I mean,
we were, I think it was a foregone conclusion, or at least like that. We were just like, oh, this is going to be easy. Yeah. They do this all the time. And
we had gotten married. We got married in May, and I was for sure, I was like, we're going to be pregnant in September.
Right.
Of that year. I just knew it.
I think my surgery was like end of July or early August.
Yeah.
And
I worked it out based on the timeline, how long I'd have to be on the hormones and stuff. And I was like, okay, definitely September will be when we're pregnant.
Right. And this was of 2018.
Yeah.
Right. And so this was, July, August of 2018 was my first surgery. And we had scheduled Claire's first egg retrieval for September. And so we went through the process. We got the sperm. That wasn't ideal numbers. They threw them in the freezer. And Claire went through the whole hormonal hijacking that is their process. Yeah, no, it really wasn't bad.
It's
Like,
because I'm already hormonal and emotional, so
yeah,
it wasn't much of a difference.
no, but I mean, it was an education for sure.
It was.
And
It was really interesting. You know, it's very time sensitive, and so we were like, I remember going to a Mariners game. I had to pack, you know, a lunch pack with ice in it and bring my hormones with me. I remember, you know, going in the bathroom and like preparing it all, and it's just a really strange thing. I never thought I'd really have to do. Yeah, all just to conceive. But.
right. Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of hurdles, a lot of hormones, a lot of testing. You know, she was driving up to the University of Washington, which is about an hour away without traffic, like for 8 a.m. blood draws and all of those. And yeah, went through the first egg retrieval, got some 30 some eggs.
A large amount, yeah.
Fertile myrtle. They just opened her up and took a ton. And then they called and they said none of my sperm made the thaw. And
so already it's like, you know, oh, we're so excited, we're gonna have the sperm removed. Oh, there's barely any. Oh, we're having an egg retrieval and we're gonna put them together. None of them made it. So we're already like,
it was a roller coaster.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was just the first egg retrieval.
Yeah.
And
but we reached out to Dr. Steve Steins, who is a
physiatrist in a wheelchair, a longtime member of the community up here in the Pacific Northwest, and
he has like an alternative approach maybe to medicine.
Yeah, and he was looking at all the alternative ways and having to do with diet and supplements, and so he prescribed a bunch of, you know, over-the-counter supplements, and it was like selenium and no, not
okay.
Yeah, but it was like vitamin D and
chocolate, berries.
Chocolate.
Wait. Can we? And chocolate?
Yeah, dark chocolate.
Yeah, that one's like, Claire's like, I'll help you with that. I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not how that works. But yeah, and so and
a lot of connection.
Yeah.
Trying to
positive
more.
Yeah,
as a couple.
Yeah, just really kind of being positive affirmations and all of that stuff. And so we started on that, and it was, I think they talk about spermatogenesis is a 90-day process, and so you need to stick to this regimen for 3 months to build up your reserves if it's possible. And that kind of coincided with the holidays, and then I wound up. I got an infection and wound up in the hospital.
Which that affects sperm count too. Infection.
Oh yeah.
And antibiotics.
Yes.
Yeah, the fever and the antibiotics, all of these things are just didn't bode well. So then we
pushed the next sperm retrieval back a bit.
Yeah, because it was scheduled for like early January. We had to push it till March. And and then we had the sperm retrieval, and this was the open things up, the microtessie, where they actually create an incision, go in with a microscope and really look for stuff, and came away with 1.4 million, which was a overwhelming success. We wound up with 5 vials of sperm to freeze.
And not to get distracted, but during that appointment, I actually was making a long list of names that I loved. And Kenny ditched all of them. He said no to all of my ideas. She's got some Scandinavian roots, and there's a lot of Scandinavian names that I was like, I don't know, with Salvini as a last name. Like, I just don't know if that's gonna jive very well. But that was during the surgery. I forgot about that. That was awesome. And the other thing about the surgery is his blood pressure was spiking significantly, where Dr. Walsh said, I will not do another surgery.
Yeah, so going in
at this point.
After the first surgery, right? Because it just prepping for surgery, just washing my groin area, I was skyrocketing.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not doing that. After this, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
And
so we knew.
So this was our only shot.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we had to. This wasn't a guaranteed slam dunk, so we had to explore sperm donors. And that was a whole interesting process in and of itself. And that'll expose every insecurity you have as a man. As I remember going through the profiles, we started calling it sperm donor Tinder. And
it really was, because you're just like reading their profile, listening to their voice,
handwriting samples, essays, all these things, baby pictures.
Well, and it brings you to like what's important to you, like, is it smarts? Is it being
family
good
history?
Looking? Is it family? History.
Right.
Is it your handwriting?
Yeah, right. Well, and it's all of these little things that are all different factors. And but the best was the subjective descriptions that they attach to the profile. So the people interview, and I thought we would have like millions of people to choose from, and I think we had 1,500. And so it's a very tight selection process, because they need, really good and viable sperm. And so like so many people will donate, but then only a handful of people might make it through the process. And but then once they make it through and all the swimmers are legit, then they start building up basically their little Tinder profiles for you to try to figure out who's going to be a match. And like the descriptions were saying, it was like donor 15674 is the epitome of sexy man. And it's just like with a square jaw and broad shoulders. And I'm just like, it feels like we're on The Bachelor, but then.
And we poke fun, but it really was like, I wanted to be a mom of my own child and carry my own child. And of course I wanted that for Kenny too. But if, we were up against, like, if that's not the case, if he does not get anything, like, would we really, follow through with that?
Right. And it really exposed a lot of my, insecurities. And I had to really do some thinking, because it was, I struggled with it pretty heavily.
Yeah. And I actually started seeing a counselor as well during that time. We had met with someone, and that was actually a requirement to move forward with a sperm donor. But then I started seeing a counselor, because I was like, this is a lot. Like just the in vitro process in general. But then
But then eventually I kind of had the realization that even if we did adoption, that's a sperm donor of a different kind. And
and love them,
and we got to meet a handful of people that had gone through the donor process and seen what their family dynamics look like, and
which was huge.
Just some really amazing families that utilized that and reminded us that a donor is one cell, and you get to pour everything else, every fiber of your being, into a child. With the mental, emotional, and spiritual support that, as a parent. And but it was interesting. All my insecurities came out. We're like going through checking off things to try to get close resemblance to me. And Claire's like because I'm only 5'9", so I'm like, I used to say I'm like 3 inches past little man syndrome. I'm not too insecure. But then when she was like, well, do I want to look at somebody over 6 feet? I was like, that I don't like it. It was like there's some insecurity there, and and so I was a little butthurt about it for a minute. And but then we found a guy with some, what is the name? It was a pseudonym. They all get, and it's like Dante and like very strange names too. And
anyways, we did pick someone.
And we had it on hand.
I had another egg retrieval, which got around the same amount as the time before. And then the process of from the day I have an egg retrieval to 7 days after is just a waiting game of no other. And on top of that, with my egg retrieval, I actually had internal bleeding. So I went home from the surgery and was laying on the couch, just like having extreme pain in like my diaphragm. And it was,
that was a scare.
I've never been to the ER before, so that was, and it was on our anniversary of our wedding.
And I made a bad joke that like the first anniversary is paper, and she got discharge papers, so that was not the best of gift. But the roller coaster began, and it's so many of these hurdles, like the first sperm retrieval, those situations, the the sperm donor, and then go through the first actual fertilization, and it's up and down every single day with the news that you get.
Yeah, you get an update like day 1, day 3, day 5 and 7 or something along those lines, and they tell you 2 are fertilizing normally, 1 might be, and then
Yeah, they do good, fair, and poor.
Yeah.
They tell you what fertilizes, and then on day 3 you've got good, fair, poor, and then from 3 all the way up to 7 you get daily updates, and yeah, you're on the edge of your seat waiting for these email updates and phone calls. And
yeah, I remember being at Microsoft doing some gaming thing when I got another email and just looking at it, and yeah, just the feelings inside. It's funny how I remember all those places I was at. But,
well, you're just so emotionally on edge, right?
And the amount of time, I mean, people don't realize, but I mean, when you started the process until you found out you were pregnant, what was that? How long?
It was a year and a half. Like the first sperm
yeah, it was a year.
was July
2018
of 18, and we weren't pregnant until January of
2020.
So I mean, yeah, it was a full year and a half. Yeah, in the first fertilization, we didn't get any successful embryos, and so then we had to go back through. There was another set of hormones and egg retrievals, and then when we finally got to 1 embryo. Like, it took us all the way through the process. We grew out to, they say day 5 blastocysts that they can then send off for testing these days. Now that if you choose, and we made the choice to do it just because you're already in this thing so deep too. And you
it increases your likelihood of success too,
right. But there was a bit of an existential thing in there as well, that's like, okay, like, this is to rule out some birth defects, and some of them are, I have friends in the community that are living with some of those very situations. And it's like, it feels really weird to be in the power, to have this power and making decisions. So we were conflicted with that as well. But we ended up going through the process, and we had 2 embryos, and 1 came back viable. And that was Isla Marie, that showed up, 9 months later. Well, there was a mock transfer that had to go on because they needed to test Claire's body to see if there was fertile, all the hormones were optimal, and
so
there was a failed one of those that all the hormones were wrong, so they had to adjust that. And and then you finally get pregnant, and then that's the normal thing that everybody else goes through. And and that was fairly straightforward until the end.
The pregnancy?
I mean, it's a lot of jumping through extra hoops, lots of more needle pokes and extra hormones for the first 10 weeks. And
I mean, that is probably not normal at all, because Kenny cannot help me with that. So we had caregivers helping us with like a 10 p.m. shot in my behind of a needle about that long. Maybe that was that long.
The fish was this big, right?
It was.
It felt like it was that big. No.
It's a 14-foot long needle.
And sometimes when we didn't have caregivers, we had our next door neighbor come over.
Big, burly, 200-pound PT comes lumbering through the door. Sorry I'm late. Claire, just pull your pants down. I'll be real quick.
Oh.
And we're like, that's a weird sentence. And
there goes that my masculinity all over again.
Right. But thankfully, we've got just amazing neighbors, and it just became hilarious at that point. And
speaking of that, so the same thing, Karen, doing the shots. So she, you need to do the shots. So needle in. Well, then I need to get the little cotton swab or whatever, so I'm reaching, so I let go of the needle and reach across, and just as I do that, she looks in the mirror and just sees this syringe just sticking out of her butt and she goes, "What are you doing? Why did you let it go?" I said, "Well, it's not going anywhere." So I took it out, and she goes, "That's it. I'm doing it on my own."
Oh, man.
She wouldn't let
Lost
me,
the job.
she
Oh,
didn't let me do it anymore.
oh, that's funny. It's like that scene from Pulp Fiction when Uma Thurman's got the needle sticking out of her chest. Oh, man.
Oh, I had to write this down so I wouldn't forget. So the urologist that was at the clinic, we went up to Huntington Reproductive Center up in Pasadena. Same thing, hour and 15, hour and a half each way. And so they said, you're going to meet with the urologist. He'll do the, electrostim. He's going to do that process. And I said, okay. So I go in there and they go, Rick, I want you to meet Dr. Blank. That was his name.
Oh, Blank.
Dr.
Oh,
Blank.
oh, I'm like, that's nice. You're keeping his name off the internet, but we're throwing our doctor's name.
Dr. Blank. And I'm sitting there going, here I am in there for infertility. He's go, Dr. Blank.
Oh,
I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, let's hope not. So
oh, that's funny. Yeah,
he was actually pretty funny, but
yeah. Well, and I'll say to Dr. Walsh's credit too, he's pretty amazing as well, because that between the two surgeries, I mean, we came in and had a consultation, and this guy's in tears. He's welling up. He's like, I really like you guys and I want this to work, but I don't know if this is going to be an option for you.
yeah.
And yeah, so that will, yeah, we got into some deep waters emotionally and spiritually and with our relationship. And yeah, but then you flash forward,
Well, yeah, I mean, so here comes the big question. So was it all worth it?
without a doubt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's
Yeah. And even the down times,
yeah.
with the new child, even those make it worth it,
Right.
yeah. So
Yeah, it's good to, just to be reminded, because I just feel incredibly grateful. I'm still on women's pages, and people talk about their struggles, and it's the same as mine. And like I feel all kids are miracles, but especially her, because she was only one that made it, and that I actually got pregnant with her, and feel very fortunate. But when there are downtimes, I don't ever think like, oh, I wish this wouldn't happen, but it's good to be reminded of it.
yes, isn't it?
She has been hitting me in the face lately, and I'm like,
All right. Oh yeah.
okay, I guess it's starting.
Yep. Oh yeah. It's
Yeah, but very worth it.
Well, and Jenna was 5.5. So as we were trying to come up with names, because we said, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we were having twins? And about 2 weeks later, we find out we're having twins. So as time's going along, we go, oh, it would be so cool if they were boy-girl twins. And about 2 weeks later, we find out they're boy-girl twins. So we're thinking, oh, let's come up with names. And we just couldn't come up with names. And Jenna was 5.5 all of a sudden, because she comes out and she goes, I have names for them. And she goes, yeah, I have Kyle and Amy. And Karen and I just stopped and we looked at each other and went, yeah, Kyle and Amy.
Oh,
That's their name, Kyle and Amy.
so cool.
that is a cool story.
Yeah, so
yeah.
So you know what? You never discount the words of a 5.5-year-old.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
and I've got to say, I mean, twins are incredible, but I am so glad that that they're boy-girl twins. We've got friends who, the twins are both girls, or the twins are both boys, and some of the things that they deal with, and we're going, I mean, Amy and Kyle have just been so close, and all forever. And Jenna has been just such this great big sister, 5.5 years old, 5.5 years older. So just, enough older to, and of course there were times when it was tough because they would gang up on her, knowing that they could,
Right.
what buttons to push. But now, especially now, I mean, at this age, Jenna, who had went out and, would move to Montana, tried out, and then said, oh, it's not happening here. Moved back to Massachusetts, where Karen and I are from, because there's still family and friends out there. And she was out there for a while, and all of a sudden just said, I just really want to come back to California. So, a couple months ago, and she sold her house, got everything packed up and all that, and made her way back here. And she'll be here with us until, just to get situated. She found the job, but until she gets situated and all of it's, we're certainly in no hurry to push any of them out the door. So,
Right.
Yeah.
so
Right.
it's so if you had to share some words of wisdom, given that whole process, to somebody who's thinking about going through it, or maybe they've been going through it and it hasn't worked as of yet, what would those words be?
Oh man, it's one thing that doesn't get touched on enough is the financial costs, and that's where it's such a burden too, and it is. The way I always look at it is everybody has their own path, and I'm almost hesitant to give advice to say, but like I've got one of my best friends that was in our wedding. He has two boys that are about to turn 20 from in vitro, and it was like, I mean, they did this in the early 2000s, and the process was way different, but it was like, I think it was like 4 turkey baster artificial inseminations and 3 rounds of in vitro to get these 2 amazing young men. And like if you've got access to the funds, that's one thing, but like for those that are scraping together trying to get that aspect taken care of, it's just a roller coaster. And it's I'm always hesitant to be like, just work hard and keep trying and you're gonna accomplish anything. And spinal cord injuries taught me that it's like, sometimes I can't outwork things. And
I would just say to be patient's not the right word, but I don't know what the word is, but something along those lines, like trust the journey, even though it's extremely hard to do that in the moment, and connect with whatever spiritual higher power thing that whatever you believe in or not. Like sometimes mine's the mountain, but that really helped me get through it, because I actually don't know how I necessarily would have without that. Kind of just something like connecting, kind of praying, even though I don't usually pray. And
you did art, you did also, and that
I connected just with anything I could. So I was drawing pictures of like the follicles and the sunsets and just things and that. And my uterus, I drew my uterus actually with Isla's name inside of it. And just
that's
stuff
really
like
cool,
that.
though. And you mentioned something earlier that I think is important, because people sometimes shy away because they think if they go to see somebody for counseling of any kind, that they're, oh my gosh, there's still, it just, with some people, there's still that negative stereotype. I can remember, taking a psych class, and the psychologist had just said, what, everybody, at least once a year should go. And even if it's one session, he goes, I go, and I always thought about that going, you can, I think, everybody could benefit from a little time, chatting with somebody. So, I think that to not hesitate to explore that, to get through it.
Well, and that was one thing that I was going to probably suggest, and that was a decision that we made early on, kind of apprehensively, is when you start this process, it's so many people keep it under wraps. So many people, like, you want to keep a secret because you don't want to get hopes up and all of these things. And we kind of made an active choice with a little bit of turmoil in the beginning about.
Yeah, we didn't actually, the first round, we did not, we kept it very like kind of secret. We didn't really do much, like anything on social
Family
media.
knew. And,
Yeah. But then I did, something switched where we were like, no, let's reach out to people. Let's share our story because it'll help us go through it too.
Yeah, it lightens the burden, and that's what I've seen just with, my spinal cord injury and everything else. That's like, the more you get knee to knee with people that have been where you've been, the more support you have. And yeah, whether it's counseling or, other kinds of support groups. Like you said, I think, regardless of the situation, especially in this day and age, it feels like life is somewhat of a spiritual crisis of some sort. And it's like finding any way to connect with yourself and to question your own thinking. That's a big thing that I've been into. I've seen a counselor for a decade, because I've learned that inside my head is not a trustworthy place to be sometimes. And it's easy to begin to believe those negative thoughts. It's like, this is never going to happen, or, nobody understands what we're going through. And it's like, it was really helpful. We've got a couple friends that have had twins through the in vitro process, one with a spinal cord injury. We've talked to people with spinal cord injuries that did sperm donors. We've talked to people that have kind of spanned the spectrum. And I guess that would be the thing too, that it's like, you almost have to be careful of the plan that you make. Like they always say, how do you make God laugh? It's by telling him your plans. And because we're gonna be pregnant by September of 18, and we're gonna, and we'll do that, and then 2 years later we're gonna have another one, and blah blah.
Managing your expectations. I think Kenny says like it was a master class in expectation management.
And thinking outside the box of what a family can look like, because maybe it is a sperm donor, maybe it is adoption, maybe it's kind of like I was saying earlier, like you can be a parent in all sorts of ways. And and that was what I finally had to come to terms with, that when it was the sperm donor option, it's like, I'm going to be this kid's father no matter what. And it's definitely been it all the stars in the universe aligned for us to have this little girl. And but as we're learning, one of our caregivers just hit us with a quote from one of her family members: it never gets easier, it just gets different. And whether you're trying to get the kid to sleep, or you're trying to get the kid to eat, or you're trying to get the kid to not hit mom, or not run over the dog's ears with the little walker thing, like it's just it's one of those live forward and learn from in reverse kind of things that because then that was the kind of another one of those mistakes that you think you're always going like, okay, once we get this, we're going to be okay. And like, once we've got this, because I remember you talking about that, like that the child was like you needed to have the child to make your life complete, kind of thing. And
that's where like the inner work, like working on finding happiness from within, which maybe came from like the art and connecting with something spiritual and counselor and stuff, that just being happy and okay with whatever the outcome was, which is not easy to do, and very much a struggle, but I'm still actually searching for that today.
Well,
so
it's that idea of never arriving, and really trying to enjoy the journey with all of the pitfalls and struggles that happen with it. And but man, this kid wakes up and you go rolling into her room and dad and mama and
smiles.
It's like, okay, all of these new uncomfortable, comfort zone stretching opportunities that are difficult. It's like, man,
and I'm pretty sure that we'll do another podcast on parenting. And with probably, we'll get if the two of you would be willing to come back, and we'll probably find two other couples, that, and just have this whole thing about, parent disability and parenting.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Well, and University of
That's-
Washington just did a forum just last month where they interviewed children of spinal cord injuries, grown children. So yeah, our friend Barry Long's son,
Barry
Gavin,
Long, yeah.
he's
Yeah, I know
16,
Barry,
17.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, Gavin was one of them, and a few other kids. It's like that. I didn't get to be a part of to watch the recording, but
Mhm.
yeah, because I mean,
That
we're
would be
all
it, yeah.
kids having kids, and it would be interesting to get their perspective, and
Mhm.
yeah, and just being connected with United Spinal and the travels that we've done, and meeting all the different parents, and watching that dynamic. It's I mean, yeah, I think that's the power of community as a whole.
Yeah.
And yeah, like if people are struggling, like find that community, whether it's the in vitro process or anything else. Oh, and now we've got a train that's going to come through and
Oh,
move
that's
your
quite great.
audio.
Yeah, we're not editing this thing at all. This is going to be live.
Exactly.
yeah.
I've heard that the train is obnoxious on other people's ends. So
Oh, I had a thought. They have a tendency to slip away
oh, buddy,
more
I know
quickly
that.
of late, but it was about parenting and oh no, and the how parenting as a a couple where one of the parents has a disability, and the interesting and creative modifications, and from everything from a changing table to whatever, and we've watched, I mean, Kenny, we've watched you and using that body point strap, as strapping to to your chest as you drove in, and
Yep.
pulling her along in the basket. I
Right.
mean, it's all of those things that that you don't think about until it happens, and then you put the thinking cap on, and you go, okay, how can I make this work?
Yep.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, no, and that's where it's helpful to get connected with other folks that have found
Yeah.
creative solutions.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess just to touch on that too, as a high quad, with no arm functions, yeah, I'm not changing diapers, I'm not doing any of that stuff. And trying to figure out how I can be emotionally supportive of Claire.
Mhm.
But yeah, there were multiple rounds, I would say, where like my insecurities as a father, my, like, how much am I contributing, kind of thing, and and Claire's super reassuring and pointing out like all the other aspects that I bring to things, and really, somebody highlighted for me a while ago that it's like, these struggles that you're having, that this little girl's tethered to her mom and all of these things, they are not wheelchair related. They are the same problems all fathers go through, that it just looks slightly different,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, I don't have the equipment to breastfeed, and that's basically what the first year was. And it's inevitable that the bond between a mother and child and a father and child are different. And yeah, if you can find creative solutions to bridge those gaps, and
Yeah.
and
And those change, through the years. Change
Yeah.
through the years. I can look at, okay, all of a sudden, I've got this stronger relationship with, with the two boys. I should have mentioned I've got 5 kids. I had 2 prior to my my injury. So, with the 2 boys, and then, all of a sudden it's, no, I've got this stronger relationship with the girls, and it just does this, and also and the whole thing is just, okay, let's not think, okay, well, why is he seem like he's got a better relationship with his mom than me, and the same thing, I was questioning. And then you got to think, okay, but maybe he's wondering, or Karen's wondering, how come I have a stronger relationship with the girls during that time?
Right.
And then it just shifts. So yeah,
Yeah.
parenting never stops.
No.
Yeah.
It just, I mean,
Yeah.
45, 46, my 46-year-old son. Hey, Dad. Hey, I gotta,
Oh yeah.
So yeah. So
You know all about that.
Where, like my mom's in the other room with the baby right now.
Yeah.
And and it's like,
I call my mom for everything.
yeah.
So
Yeah. And I'm trying to, we crossed a year, and that was my joke. I'm like, just 17 more of these, and she's just gonna leave us. And my parents are like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like at 42, when you're still calling us for
yeah.
everything, it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's I've said it's a whole new tank of love. And it's all those cliches that you hear people talk about, and it's like, yeah. And but then you look at the kid, and you can't imagine your life without him.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no, for me, and so many others, there's just no greater joy than parenthood,
Yeah.
and as time goes on, you begin that whole paranoia of something happening to one of your kids, and yeah, and I can't imagine, at times when the kids will be driving somewhere, and out here, I mean, you could be the safest driver in the world and have some nutcase
California drivers, man.
clip you,
Yep.
So
Yeah. Well, and
yeah.
it gives you a new perspective on your own parents,
Yeah.
especially,
Oh, yeah.
paralyzed at 23,
Oh, yeah.
and I look at this little girl, and I'm like, I can't, she fell and like poked a hole in her lip with one of her top teeth the other day, and there's blood everywhere, but it stopped in it.
Dramatic.
I know.
It's not everywhere.
It is dramatic. I mean, it might as well have been just an absolute massacre.
Oh my God, she needs a transfusion.
Exactly. No, like I fell apart on our road trip when she got a cold, and there's just nothing I could do. And it's like, I can't imagine a spinal cord injury, and a high one at that, coming in to seeing your kid on a ventilator and all these things. But I'm under no illusions that this kid is not going to go through pain also. And and seeing the spectrum of people that I've met because of my injury, and watching people thrive through situations, that it is a possibility. It gives us hope too. But yeah. And we get to use all you guys as fish bowls. You guys have all been there, done that, and yeah.
And I'm careful too what words of wisdom I share, because
right.
It's the same thing. You got to be, but oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And did you have something else, Kenny? Or?
Oh no, I was just thinking, like it's the more I stick around, the more I realize that we rely on a lot of luck. And and we are lucky to have made it through this whole process, and so many things had to go completely different ways, and that's my whole story in a nutshell. That without one thing, you don't end up in the next space. And
Well, congratulations to both of you on your success, as that's what the journey, that long journey, it was a success. And for those that are thinking about it or going through it now, I know both of you, and I know Karen and I, we wish them all the very best, and hope that they experience the same success. So I want to thank you both for your time and for joining me. And I knew it wouldn't be 35 or 45 minutes with the three of us.
Oh, man, that's what I was going to say. I'll take any excuse to get on the call and just hang out with you, man.
Thanks for having us.
We'll talk about our introduction, wandering around DC, and all of that, how we first crossed.
We'll do that in maybe
the next one.
And I'll get it in early.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh,
sweet.
Yeah, so you know what? We've gone this long. What's 3 or 4 minutes, right? So Kenny and Claire and I met during the Roll on Capitol Hill in Washington, DC. This is an event that's put on by United Spinal every year. And so we were there, and I believe we had finished the day of meetings. We must have, because we were coming down from the Capitol.
Yeah, because I was up there and Claire had met me because I had a caregiver pushing me through the whole Capitol, and then we went to the reception and the awards banquet and stuff inside of the Senate building, and then we were trying to find our way home, and that's when
I came down the hill and I saw the two of you there, and and said, well, we can wait for that. No, let's let's go. So we decided to brave the DC Metro system, thinking, we got this. And I realized as we were going along that Kenny's sense of direction was as bad as mine. And,
questionable at best.
Yeah.
At best.
And fortunately, Claire was with us, who has a great sense of direction, because when she realized that we were just going to get lost, she just took charge. And Kenny and I were all,
well, not without a fight.
Please do.
I was doubting her the whole time. I'm like, no, I think that's wrong. That can't possibly. And you're like, no, I know where we're going. This is exactly where we go. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah, just trying to get up and down the metro elevator.
Oh yeah.
And then what do you know? I was wrong.
We come,
Music to my ears.
And we come out and we're looking, hey, this looks familiar.
Yeah.
But how do we get the rest of the way? We're thinking, I don't know. And there was remember, there's some people standing there. Claire goes up to them, and says, hey, we're trying to get to this hotel. Oh yeah, you go down here and around here. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, I guess we could have asked them too, but
typical dudes not asking for directions.
So we ended up back there, and so that was our bonding moment.
Indeed.
The bonding moment. So
5 years later, man, here we are.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, and have a great night. Give that little girl a hug, and we'll do another one on parenting.
Looking forward to it, man.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks for taking